योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचां मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोत्तं प्रवरं मुनीनां पतञ्जलिं प्राञ्जलिरानतोऽस्मि आबाहुपुरुषाकारं शङ्खचक्रासिधारिणं सहस्रशिरसं श्वेतं प्रणमामि पतञ्जलिम् गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुर् गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः हरिः ओम्. So last time we looked at Sutra 2.33, which was Vitarka Badhane Pratipaksha Bhavanam. And in detail we looked at Vyasa's commentary. We also touched upon how Guruji has shed more light on this. So today we look at the next sutra, which is covering the same topic but going more detail in more detail about Pratipaksha Bhavanam. So this is Sutra 2.34, which is as follows. Vitarka Himsadayah Kritakarithanumodita Lobakrodha-moha-purvaka Mrudumadhyadimatra Dukkha-jnananantaphala iti Pratipaksha Bhavanam. So as usual, let's look at each of the terms to understand the sutra first. So it ends with iti Pratipaksha Bhavanam. So this is Pratipaksha Bhavanam, says Vyasa. Last time we spent quite some time on what is this Bhavanam and what is this Pratipaksha. And the Pratipaksha is to build. So when the Vitarkas are sort of creating problems for the yogi, he builds a Pratipaksha, an opposite stand to counter the Vitarkas. And through the Bhavanam, which is to bring about that, we use different terms to bring that about in the mind. We also said creative contemplation and so on. So essentially it is to bring a certain state of mind, certain set of thoughts which arise from a deep cultured knowledge of the Shastras, the understanding of yoga, understanding of Yama-niyamas and so on. So that is Pratipaksha Bhavanam. So here Vyasa is saying, or Patanjali is saying, iti Pratipaksha Bhavanam. So what is this Pratipaksha Bhavanam? So Vitarkaha, Himsadayaha. So there are multiple Vitarkas, Himsa, etc. So again last time we saw what is Vitarka. In short, Viparitas Tarka Vichara Yeshu Karyeshu iti Vitarkaha. So when there is a Viparita Tarka, okay, in any activity, Viparita or contrary, opposite, with respect to the Yama-niyamas. Another definition we had seen last time was Yama-niyama Viparita Himsadayah Dasha Vitarka Shabdena Tantre Paribhashitaha. So as a Paribhashika Padam, as a technical term, the Vitarkas are the 10 opposites of the Yama-niyamas. So these Vitarkas, so Vitarkaha, Himsadayah, Kruta Karita Anumoditaha. So they are Kruta, means done. Karita means you get it done from someone else. So that is Karita. So we have touched upon this in every Sanskrit verb form has another form which is about getting that thing done. So Karita is that. So for example, for Himsa, a person may himself do Himsa, or he may get Himsa done from somebody else. So that is Karita. And Anumodita, Anumoditaha. So Anumodita means when somebody else does it, that is approved by this person. He doesn't counter it. Or that sometimes it is abetted. The violence is abetted by somebody. So approved and abetted. That is Anumodita. So even if one does not do that oneself, if it is gotten done through somebody else, or when somebody else does it if one looks with approval, it is still a vitarka. So vitarkaha himsadayah kritakaritanumoditaha lobha krodha moha purvakaha. So again, it may be stemming out of lobha, like desire and greed and so on. Krodha, anger. Moha. Moha is incorrect understanding, delusion, etc. So lobha, krodha, moha purvakaha. Mrudu madhya adimatraha. So in terms of their intensity, they may be mild, mrudu, madhya, moderate or medium, adimatra, which is vehement, intense. Dukkha jnanananta phala. So this is where the pratipaksha bhavana comes. So vitarka of whatever form, whether kritakarita anumodika or lobha krodha moha purvaka or mrudumadhyadi matra, in the end they are dukkha ajnana ananta phala. So they lead, or they are full of sorrow, ajnanam, contrary knowledge, and anantapalaha, the never-ending bad results. So this aspect, the last term, the dukkha ajnana anantapalaha, is the pratipaksha bhavanam. This is what is inculcated in the mind to counter the vitarka tendencies. Because vitarka of whatever sort, and here multiple types are given, they are dukkha ajnana anantapalaha. Bringing this about in one's mind with strength and conviction that arises out of a deep study of shastras and yoga. That last time we saw that like a yogi would say, "Oh, I am turning into a dog which is licking its own vomit because I had given up the samsara tendencies and now I seem to be going back there." So that kind of contrary thought. In this case, the contrary thought is, "Oh, this is this vitarka which is coming about either through me, or I'm getting it done, or I'm approving when somebody else does it." All of this is dukkha ajnana ananta phala. And to understand this, here this is a cultured yogi who has studied the shastras. So the conviction of this being the dukkha ajnana ananta phala is strong because of the background of the shastra and yoga. So this conviction that arises in the mind is pratipaksha bhavanam, because it is pratipaksha. It is the opposing stand. Opposing what? Opposing the vitarkas. Vitarkas are contrary to yama niyamas. So by opposing the vitarkas, it is going back to the path of yoga and yama niyama. And this is the nature of pratipaksha bhavanam. So Patanjali has introduced this sutra as a follow-on to the previous sutra, because vitarka badane pratipaksha bhavanam. Then one may ask, okay, but what is this pratipaksha bhavanam? To illustrate that, Patanjali has introduced this sutra, vitarka himsadayah, where he is also bringing the breadth of scope of vitarka. Vitarka need not be what someone does himself. It might be done through the other. It is of different types. It is of different intensities. But in the end, whatever be the case, it is dukkha ajnana ananta phala. And bringing that in one's mind is pratipaksha bhavanam. That is what the sutra says by saying vitarka himsadayah kritakarita anumodita lobha krodha moha purvaka mrudumadhyadi matra dukkha jnana ananta phala iti pratipaksha bhavanam. So this is sutra 2.34.
So it's a very interesting sutra. In the previous sutra, we were told that in case of vitarka badha, there should be pratipaksha bhavana. Now, vitarka badha means the kind of infection that we get, whereby our ahimsa is violated, satya, adi, etc. are violated. So our principles of yoga are violated by getting some vitarka badha, which is a kind of fever. So just as we experience fever, when a fever comes to us, similarly, these are all fevers, particularly when somebody has decided to take as vows. That means he wants to live. The person wants to live, the practitioner wants to live in ahimsa, satya, asteya, brahmacharya, aparigraha, etc. So he wants that to be what is called as thayi bhava. That should become characteristic to him, the conduct of yogic principles. Now, when there is an infection, there is a fever, etc., it is of the form of causing himsa, causing asatya, causing abrahmacharya and parigraha, steya, etc., or ashaucha, asantosha, etc. So opposites. So once you must know what are the opposites of five yamas and five niyamas. So this should be clear in your mind. When you are supposed to be practicing these principles, you must also identify what are the opponents of it. What are in counter position of ahimsa, satya, asteya, brahmacharya, aparigraha, shaucha, santosha, tapas, swadhyaya, ishvara pranidhana. So you must be clear about these. And when those things occur, that is called vitarka badha. And then for vitarka badha, there should be pratipaksha bhavanam. So that was mentioned, that was a statement in the last sutra. Now he is opening out. And this is such an interesting sutra, was such a wide purport, deep purport in it. So he mentions the vitarkas. In the first part of the sutra, vitarka, himsa, dayaha, himsa, etc. All those are in counterposition of yama niyamas are included in etc. So then he mentions the whys, the why, why, why they occur, why they happen, why they come about. So those are called the cause of vitarka badha. Why is the vitarka badha is there? Suppose you want to take antidote, you want to have a strategy and antidote against what has happened, which should not have happened. We need an investigation. Like there is pathology in medicine. So here, why it has happened is the second part of the sutra. First part is vitarka himsa dayaha. Himsa etc. are vitarka badha. Then the means and instrumentations of those happening, the instrumentation may be kruta, karita, or anumodita. And Srini just now explained to you. That is, kruta means done by oneself. Karita means getting done from someone, appointing an agency, or we ourselves becoming an agency for somebody's inflicting on somebody, the himsa, etc. Anubodhita means to nod our heads, sanction that act of himsa, asatya, etc. or applaud or encourage someone. See, many times we do not want to do vicious things. So what do? We appoint someone and then we can find an escape. I did not do it. So that's the human tendency that an agency is appointed to carry out these sinister acts. Now here you cannot be taking escape like we do in our business activity of life. I did not do it. So that is also not out of this vitarka badha. If you have appointed someone as an agent, then that also is your sin. And you are the culprit. Or it might be applauded. Somebody does and perhaps you did not instigate and tell the person, but somebody has done it, you become happy. See, if your rival or your enemy, your foe or your alien is harmed, if you become happy, then actually you are also agency to that harm caused to that person. So that is included in anumodita. So the causation of vitarka badha comes in this part of the sutra. And then pathology. Why it happened? Why the vitarka badha got in? This is an important aspect in pathology. Also, you just can't know what is the defect. Why it got in to really turn out remedy suitable for it. So for Pratipaksha Bhavana, it is important to know the uh, pathology of Himsa, Asatya. There is pathology behind Himsa, Asatya, Steya, Abrahmacharya, Parigraha. Because there is biochemistry behind all these tendencies or all these activities. As much as there is biochemistry behind Ahimsa, Satya, Asteya, you should know that all human activities are backed by, are composed of, or the material of that is biochemistry. So there is pathology. So he says the violation might take place because of lobha, either lobha or because of trace of lobha in you, like you get in pathological reports. Sometimes they say there is trace. So similarly, lobha, which is greed, desire kind of thing, or trace of lobha. We may not be having actual lobha express, but still there is lobha potential within us. So that would be trace, that there is a trace of lobha or actual lobha or pronounced lobha. So also krodha and moha. Krodha means anger, moha means delusion, infatuation. Now, what is to be understood that we need to take measures against this, more importantly, so that we will be working more on the cause of the fever in the form of himsa, etc. We just can't be managing the agencies, kruta, directly done by oneself, got done from someone else, or sanction someone to be doing it, or applauding someone to be doing it, etc. So much of the management is in this aspect of the sutra, lobha, krodha, moha, purvaka. So this is so important to really decide on antidote by Pratipaksha Bhavana. Because if it's something can happen out of greed, something can happen by krodha, something can happen by moha. See, if I rob you of your 100 rupees, now in criminal laws, I will be just a culprit that I robbed someone. But in jurisprudence, particularly ancient jurisprudence, it was considered why somebody robbed. I can be robbing you when I don't need it, and yet I can be robbing it because I can rob you because you are my alien. I have some anger with you. I don't need 100 rupees. I have more hundreds with myself, but yet I want to vex you. I want to torment you. I want to harass you. I am angry with you. I have got some anger with you, and therefore I might rob. Or I might have greed. I have hundreds of with myself, but I have some greed for another 100 or as many hundreds possible. The viciousness is different. Or moha or delusion, sometimes I may destitute myself and therefore I am deluded. It is anybody's 100 rupees, I want to steal it. I find 100 rupees somewhere, I pick it up. I try to take it. I am very hungry. And then I am hungry and therefore I am robbing you. Now there is a social element in sin because society has kept me hungry. So much hungry that I felt like robbing someone and then quenching my hunger. So my viciousness is less. It is more a collective viciousness of the society because society has kept me destitute, poor. So the sin factor is different, where it is considered why the sin has taken place. We just can't punish because of the sin. It is important to investigate why the sin has taken place. So why the violation has taken place. So this is so important to really decide on antidote. What kind of antidote should be there? There cannot be a blanket kind of antidote. So this has to be considered. Lobha, krodha, moha. So where there is more sin, in my robbing you of 100 rupees, where is more sin? So you can certainly ascertain that. Where is more sin? Where is more vicious potential in me? See, when I am hungry and I rob you, there is not vicious potential in me necessarily or that much as it is when I rob you out of greed. I have, but still I have greed. Or I have anger. I have it, but I am angry with you, and therefore I rob you. So these are different degrees of violation. These are different degrees of sins. So this is so important aspect to really uh, formulate Pratipaksha Bhavana. So you should know if out of greed you have violated, what should be the antidote. It is different than out of krodh, out of moha. So lobha, krodha, moha, purvaka. So actually, if you look at the pathology here, lobha has highest sin potential, little less in krodha, further less in moha. Then that is what comes to in the next part about the calibration. Mrudu, madhya, adhimatra. Mild sin, middle, and intense. If you are millionaire and I rob you of 100 rupees, it is mild. But if you are poor person and once in a while you happen to have 100 rupees with you, once in a blue moon, once in months or year you happen to have 100 rupees with you and I rob you, there is greater sin. If I rob a billionaire with by 100 rupees, it is not that much a sin. See, I have robbed only 100. But whom am I robbed? Now, if that is not going to be inflicting so much to a billionaire, which is naturally the true thing, but somebody already a poor, already in need of money, and I have robbed. When you don't need at all, and even you can dispense with 100 rupees, I have robbed you. So by 100 rupee robbing is not that much of sin, then 100 rupees is too big amount for you. If I robbed you, then there is a greater sin. So that's Mrudu, Madhya, Adhimatra. This calibration also has to be considered in analyzing in this, what we call diagnosis and prognosis. And what is the nature of Pratipaksha Bhavana? It should be of this nature that in my committing, violating ahimsa, etc., there is enormous dukkha that I am opening gates for. There is ananta dukkha, ananta ajnana, and ananta phala. One of the commentators had said, there is not only dukkha, ajnana, ananta. What is implied is there is ananta dukkha, ananta ajnana, ananta phala. Because I will be caught in the karma wheel. It is already very difficult to escape. And actually, I am reinforcing my shackles by violating this. So that's how it should be taking place, Pratipaksha Bhavana. So this is a sutra with enormous purport and entails a lot of analysis and a lot of insight, which Vyasa's commentary does later. So causal factors, that is instrumental factors, causal factors, and intensity. This is so important to really analyze the magnitude of the sin or vice committed by violation of ahimsa, satya, asteya, brahmacharya, aparigraha, shaucha, etc. And this particularly is so strong for anusthana. Ordinary people just practice with, have these norms, and ideally we want to practice this, and if they are violated, it doesn't really prick us. Oh, it was the condition in life, situation in life, I had to violate, and we justify even violation sometimes. We justify the violation because of gravity of mundanity on us. But here the yogi is anusthana. It is a vow. It is a vrata. So if the vrata is broken, violated, one is more responsible than people around, because usually we try to find culprits. Because of this person, I did this way. I did not do my duty. So somebody is responsible. Some situation is responsible. Some condition is responsible. Some person is responsible. So we try to trace factors outside us. This is human nature, and then we try to be free from any stigma. Whereas in Vrata, a yoga conscious person will always find fault, will see the culprit within oneself rather than somebody outside and something outside, or situation or circumstance. Circumstance, which is paristhiti, wonderful word in vernacular. Paristhiti. He blames paristhiti, not antasthiti. Pari means peripheral. So we try to look around and try to find out why it was violated. And then we blame them, and that we consider ourselves to be not that much to be blamed. But this is human tendency. So antasthiti is lobha, krodha, moha, purva. So it has a lot of deep purport this sutra has. The diagnosis and prognosis, pathology of violation, behind violation. This is so important. Okay.
Yes. So now like was explained, the dukkha and ajnana brings ananta, never-ending bad phala, right? So the vigraha vakyam, so dukkha jnanananta phalaha is a single compound term. It is called samastapadam, which has a vigraha vakyam, the split sentence. And the vigraha vakyam for this will be dukkham cha ajnanam cha iti dukkha jnane te eva anantani phalani yesham te tathoktaha vitarkaha. So those that bring in dukkha and ajnana as results, which are immeasurable, anantani, never ending. So this is a visheshanam. It is a qualification and describing term for the vitarkas. So now let's look at Vyasa's commentary. So he begins with Tatra himsa tavat kritakarita anumoditeti tridha. So Vyasa takes ahimsa, the first yama, as an example to explain this Pratipaksha Bhavanam, and the vitarka corresponding to that will be himsa for ahimsa. So he says Tatra himsa tavat kritakarita anumoditeti tridha. This we have seen. Tridha means of three kinds, which will be krita, karita. Karita again, it is the same verb. The verb is called dikrin, and there is a suffix which I have talked about earlier called nich. And when you add that, it brings in a form of the verb that says getting things done from somebody else, and which can be applied to any verb. So here it is krita, karita, and anumoditeti tridha, of three types. Ekaika punastrida. So now the Vyasa is expanding to show how many types it is leading to. So he's saying each of these, krita, karita, and anumodita, which is done, getting it done, or abetted, approved, sanctioned, or each of these three, ekaika punastrida, they again have three further types or trifurcation. It will be lobhena, mausacharmarthena, krodena, apakritam anena iti, mohena, dharmo me bhavishyati iti. So each of these, the krita has again three, lobha, krodha, moha. Karita has three, lobha, krodha, moha. Anumodita has three, lobha, krodha, moha. And here Vyasa has given an example of what is himsa by lobha, himsa by krodha, and himsa by moha. The example given by Vyasa is lobhena maansa charmarthena. So himsa done by desire or greed for either flesh or the hide or the skin and so on. So in order to get something, that is lobhena, an example. Himsa, example of himsa by lobha. Second is krodhena, by anger. Apakritam anena iti. Oh, this fellow or this creature has caused harm, has done wrong, therefore I do himsa on that. So that is the anger. That is krodhena. Third is mohena, delusion, lack of knowledge. or contrary knowledge. So mohena dharmo me bhavishyati iti. By doing this violence, by maybe it is some form of ritual or whatever, by doing this, I will get dharma, I will get punya. So the sort of a misunderstanding for someone who is under a vrata of ahimsa, through misunderstanding he does himsa, that is mohena. And each of these can be kritakarita anumodita. Now Vyasa proceeds, Lobha Krodha Mohaha Punastrividha Mrudumadhyadimatra iti. So now, once again, so it is like we are forming a what's called as a tree, right? When a diagram is drawn, and starting with three branches, there's Krita, Karita, Anumodita. Each of these has three further branches, Lobha, Krodha, Moha. Now, each of these again has three branches, which is Punastrividha, Mrudu, Madhya and Adimatra. Now this was just explained. It can be mild, moderate or intense or vehement. Now if we count how many branches this has led to, Vyasa says, Evam Saptavimshatir Bhedaha Bhavanti Himsayaha. So now with the example of Himsa, we have come to 27 different Bhedas or 27 different kinds. Now one thing to notice here is the amount of time being spent by Vyasa, by Patanjali to explain the different shades of Vitarka, different dimensions along with that can be classified. So essentially often we'll say, okay, Vitarka Bhadane Pratipaksha Bhavanam. When you come up with any obstacle or something or a contrary thought comes to mind, you bring up the opposite stand, and that is the way to deal with it, which is very simple. But if you see the wise and ancient seers, they actually spend time to understand the contrary thoughts. Vitarka, why is this Vitarka coming in? What are the different types of Vitarkas? And then how to counter them. So this depth of thought is important. Whether it is along the path of jnana or along the path of any hindrance to the jnana, both of that has to be properly understood. So there is a lot of time and thought spent by the seers, and they're also spending a lot of the commentary to explain that, which tells us that when any of this is to be learnt, one has to think further and further. Okay, Vitarka, what are these Vitarkas? What are the Vitarkas corresponding to the 10, the 5 yamas and the 5 niyamas? What are the different shades and varieties within that, and how to counter that? So Vyasa has spent time to bring in these 27 to our notice. Now he goes further. He says, Mrudu Madhya Adimatraha Punastrividha. Each of these Mrudu Madhya Adimatra, again there are three, which is further subdivision. Mrudu Mrudu, Madhya Mrudu, Tivra Mrudu. So within the broader category of mild, there is a very mild, medium mild and not so mild. So the Mrudu Madhya, so there's a Mrudu Mrudu, Madhya Mrudu, Tivra Mrudu. Then Tatha Mrudu Madhya, Madhya Madhya, Tivra Madhya. Tatha Mrudu Tivra, Madhya Tivra, Adimatra Tivra iti. Evam Ekashiti Bhedaha Himsa Bhavati. So now the Himsa, further by the multiplication of 3, that 27 becomes 81. That is Ekashiti. So he says there are 81 types of these Himsa that we have come to, taking Himsa as a general example. However, he says, Sa Punaha Niyama Vikalpa Samuchaya Bhedat Asankheya Pranabrud Bhedasya Aparisankheyatvad iti. So he says, furthermore, now these are these 81, but there is a Niyama, Vikalpa and Samuchaya Bheda. Now, Niyama, one example of Niyama is a certain rule that we had seen, the fisher folk. The fisherman may say, okay, I will do Himsa on fish, but on nothing else. So that is an example of Niyama. Now, Vikalpa means, okay, so someone, I will have Himsa for, say, a ritual or for whatever, for consumption, maybe only goat and sheep, but nothing else. So that is a Vikalpa. There is a certain alternative which you can pick. Samuchaya means on several types of creatures, Himsa has been done. So there is that differentiation coming further. And pranabhrut bhedasya aparisankheyatvat, which means there is a variety of creatures. There are people, there are animals, there are a variety of animals. All of them are pranabhrut, means they are creatures with prana, living creatures. Because there are so many, there is a potential of himsa on so many. In addition to the niyama vikalpa samuchaya that we have seen. And therefore, he says the types of himsa as an example of vitarka are innumerable. That is what the types is innumerable. Asankheyam. And therefore, still with the example of himsa and then all the further subdivisions. And in the end saying, oh, even with these 81 subdivisions, there is of course this niyama vikalpa samuchaya and the pranabhrut, the innumerable number of creatures. The types of himsa is innumerable. And then he says, evam anrutadishu api yojyam. So anruta means opposite of nruta or opposite of rutam. That is the opposite of satya. So here he is referring to satya as the second name. Ahimsa satya asteya. So he is referring to satya. So evam anrutadishu api yojyam. Similarly, it has to be applied for asatya, etc. also. Just like for himsa, this analysis is done. And this analysis is still brief. He has given the sort of a skeletal framework on how to analyze. Similar analysis needs to be done with satya, etc. also, he says. So essentially what is being what we have to observe is, even the vitarkas are analyzed sort of objectively, and this analysis, this understanding helps us counter the vitarkas. So that is one aspect of the intellectual academic pursuit also to be observed here. And the Vyasa has chosen the example of himsa, and he says similar example also applies to the asatya, which is the opposite of satya. And then he says, te khalu ami vitarkaha dukkha jnanananta phala iti pratipaksha bhavanam. So he says, now he brings in the aspect of pratipaksha bhavanam. So these vitarkas, right, they are all dukkha ajnana ananta phala. Bringing this thought in the mind, and to be able to bring this thought, like we have repeated a few times, needs a sort of a deep understanding and conviction among in the subject of yoga, the subject of shastras. But then you bring that in the mind. So that is the bhavanam. That all of this, these vitarkas, they are of so many types. All of them are dukkha, ajnana, ananta phala. Bringing this thought in the mind is, or making that arise with a strong conviction, that is pratipaksha bhavanam. Then Vyasa explains, dukkham ajnanam cha ananta phalam yesham iti pratipaksha bhavanam. So again he is saying dukkham and ajnanam is there is ananta phala, unending results or effects of the nature of dukkha and ajnana. And this to a yogi is extremely something to be feared, something to be tormented, because a yogi is going in the direction of moksha and kaivalya. So he wants to get rid of the karmashaya and get rid of avidya. Now if something is going to lead to ananta dukkha and ajnana, then his whole journey is jeopardized right there. And therefore, once one understands that to a yogi, once it is said that this is dukkham ajnanam ananta phalam, and once that pratipaksha bhavanam arises, the immediate effect is to completely go away from these vitarkas. And that is something we need to realize because of the background of all the sutras that we have seen so far. Tatacha himsakaha tavat. Okay, so now we will look at how this is leading to dukkham and ajnanam as the nature of phalam. That we'll see next.
So Vyasa creates a basis for field for analysis, because this is so important. Like if sin has happened, then there has to be investigation. Thorough investigation has to take place. And then the jurisprudence will be based on that. So why, how, when, where, So these are all factors of investigation which are so important in case a sin has happened. So similarly, this is almost a sin. This is indeed a sin when violation of yamas or niyamas have taken place. Particularly with reference to the yogi who is in anusthanam, there are certainly sins. In our case, if the practice is violated for any reasons, maybe we will say justifiable reason, and then of course we don't entail any punishment as such. But he is in anusthanam, and therefore now here is that investigation. So if you want to understand this quite detailed factorial kind of analysis of Vyasa, you should make a table. Basically, vitarka badha, the nature of ahimsa, asatya, etc. will take place. Kruta, karita, anubodhita. So you have to form the vitarka badha, and then a table form, left side column, middle column, right side column. Kruta, karita, anumodita. Then each one of these, kruta, will be again having a threefold division. They can happen lobha, by lobha, krodha, moha. So kruta can be lobha, krodha, moha. So you will again have table extended down. The kruta will be again divided into three. The karita will be divided into three. Anumodita will be divided into three. So you will see the factors which are opening out, which he numbered 27 and 81, etc. Then the table should further extend that each one of those factors will be either mrudu or madhya or adhimatra. So now the table will tell you that there are 27 factors. And then he goes further that mrudu can be again subdivided into mrudu, madhya mrudu, tivra mrudu. So also with regards to the madhyama also can be divided mrudu madhya, tivra madhya. And then tivra can be mrudu tivra, madhya tivra, adhimatra tivra. So he further opens out, and then you will get 81. Now, why is this all detailing? Can be a question that comes to the mind. Why not just sutra enough? Why is Vyasa going so deep, etc., etc.? You see, because we have to take an antidote. We have to take measures against. So the measure must correspond to symptoms. Like your dosage of medicine depends upon how far you are affected by any infection. So the dosage will increase in case it is a very strong fever, or it is mild fever, the dosage will be less. And therefore, because here is that pathology as it comes in medicine, the investigations are so important. And that is why he arrives at 81 factors. It is basically because in the Sanatana Dharma, in the jurisprudence of our smritis, because the dharma is given by smritis, and all punishments, etc., prayashchita, etc., atonement, etc., expiation, etc., they are all mentioned in Dharma Shastra. And there is very interesting principle that they have been adhering to. It's very interesting, understand this. And this is so important even in our modern world. The sin should be punished, not the sinner. The sin should be punished, not the sinner, and the sinner should be reformed. Now, this is the principle in jurisprudence, ancient jurisprudence given by the Mimamsakas. You should punish the sin, not the sinner, and also see that the whatever is sentence declared by the jurisprudence should give scope for reformation of the sinner. Sinner must be having some scope or some desire to get reformed. So, The sin should be punished, not the sinner. And therefore, we have to understand the sin is magnitude. And the, the sinner who has been accused, as I told you an example, that in that case, the society is culprit because the society has kept people in that economic strata which is far below sustenance level. So the society is responsible to a great extent. So therefore, whether somebody is really sinner in sinning, many times sinning will take place without being a sinner. So try to ponder over this. Many times the sins take place, and you are not really sinister. So we say unknowingly happened. I was caught in some situation, etc., etc. I was victim of the situation, and therefore it was a spontaneous reaction. So all these things happen. So one may not be, when the sin has been committed, it may not be committed by even a person who is not really sinister. You can't label him as sinner. All the sin has taken place. So if you understand the life dynamics, you will come to know this. Therefore, the sin is being analyzed. It is so important to analyze, investigate the sin with a greater depth, and then really understand whether the sinner is really a sinner there. Say, if you are killing a mosquito, what is the sin? And then you are killing someone in your own defense. Now, it is accepted by modern jurisprudence that if you are attacking an offender, and in the process that person is killed, still you are not a sinner. There is no sinning potential. You are not sinister to be killing a robber who was coming to rob your house, or who was trying to attack you and rob your house. In that case, if you really kill that person, so the jurisprudence says that the person is not sinner, and therefore that is not sin. It was self-defense that he pulled the trigger of the pistol. So such things are there in dynamics of life. Therefore, the sin must be analyzed. The sinner too also should be analyzed to really identify whether the sinner is really a sinner, whether the sinner is really a sinister. And therefore, these classifications have been opened out because you are going to take measures. You will have to have a strategy. In strategy, you need to have a lot of factors considered, all factors considered, a thorough consideration of factors, and then you can be strategizing as to what and how much should be Pratipaksha Bhavana. I cannot be spanking you with 100 hunters for every kind of sin. So it depends upon how much is the sin, how much is the sin potential in the person. So all these things are to be considered. Therefore, classification of sin and classification of sinning. So there is a lot of jurisprudence behind this, which was there in the seers of lore who formulated Dharma Shastra, and that is why these analyses are there. From 333, which Patanjali mentions, it goes to 27, it goes to 81, and it can be increased. And then finally, after saying that there can be 81 and some multiplication of it, he says then still again, Niyama Vikalpa Samuchaya. So, like Srini told you just now, a fisherman, there is no sinning in his killing fish. But then if he changes from fish to something else, that means he has violated. So also, the Vikalpa option, under such condition only I would indulge with it. And now you have not adhered to that framework, I have broken the framework. Vikalpa can be there. then samuchaya or collection of so many factors. So if you look at the dynamics of life, you will understand that Vyasa has really considered the dynamics of life comprehensively in order to go for this analytical process or process of analysis in considering the Vitarka Bada. There cannot be a blanket statement for Vitarka Bada capital punishment. Like in some jurisprudence that was there in the primitive times of human culture and civilization. So that should not be taking place. The dosage should commensurate with the affliction, infection. Like in medicine, the dosages are decided, not merely medicine is decided. So they decide on dosage. This is so important. If the dosage goes wrong, the medicine will not work, and perhaps will work negatively. And that's why these analyses have taken place. It's not just intellectual gymnastics, that it's really needed to take measures by way of Pratipaksha Bhavana. And this also shows, it reflects the tremendous jurisprudence which was there in our Arsha Shastras, Dharma Shastras, Manu Yagnavalkya Dharma Shastras. They mention about all these things as to how the law should be dispensed. And therefore here also we are going to take measures against Vitarka Bada. So how the measures should be taken, in what dosage, what degree, and what kind of measures should be taken is so important. Say some rich person creates a sin. You just can't penalize him by putting fine, because paying fine is no problem for him. He's already a multi-billionaire. So he doesn't hesitate. He feels happy that if you have just given a sentence that some thousands of rupees or hundreds of thousands of rupees should be imposed as fine, and then leave this person free. So he'll be happy to do that. So see, the jurisprudence is an enormous subject matter in Dharma Shastra, and Vyasa is bringing that here so that we take proper, suitable, fitting, justifiable, right, discrete measures, not indiscreet measures. And that is why he has gone for analysis. It is not just intellectual gymnastics, with which he goes from 9 to 27 to 81 and more, etc. Okay.
Okay, so far we have seen Vitarka, Himsadaya, with the example of Himsa, the Vitarka, how it can be Kritakarita Anumodita, further arising, the Krita means the done, being gotten done, or approved, or abetted, and then again caused by either desire or greed, lobha, anger, krodha, or wrong knowledge or delusion, moha, further different levels of intensity or vehemence in the mrudu, madhya, and adimatra. And then we say that what is the pratipaksha bhavanam there? The understanding that they lead to dukkham, sorrow, ajnanam, the lack of knowledge and contrary knowledge of immense proportion, ananta phalaha. So the ananta phalaha, so that leads to effects that are immense in proportion. So bringing that part, the dukkha, ajnana, ananta phalaha, ete vitarkaha, that in the mind is the pratipaksha bhavanam. Now how that comes about and how that is to be brought about in the mind. So again with the example of himsa, Vyasa will tell us how this himsa leads to dukkha, how it leads to ajnana, and why that phalam or phalani are anantani. So that is something that will come next. We'll see that in the next session, because all of that it is best seen together. So today we'll stop here. Also, today we have had the 100th session since the commencement of these Yoga Sutra sessions.
Well, So therefore, we thank you for your patience. We are able to complete the 100th session today. Now, with the following part, you see, if very conscientious yogi, he just turns unto himself and feels the prick of conscience, I committed some sin, and then punishment will be accordingly taken. But that is not proper. We have to see when someone who is inflicted by our violation also should be considered. So in jurisprudence, it is considered, like I told you example, a rich man is robbed of 100 rupees. Is almost, it goes unidentified. Hungry man is robbed. Already a poor person is robbed because once in a while he happens to have 100 rupees and I have robbed him. So what is the infliction? What have I inflicted by my violation is also to be considered. So the opposite entity, which is suffering on account of our Vitarka Badha, that also has to be considered. Our conscience also has to be considered, and what it has, the consequence of it, what has resulted, also has to be considered. So sometimes I may not be pricked by what I did, but then the person on whom it was inflicted might suffer a lot. So punishment should consider that, not how much I have had prick of conscience. So sometimes it is like that you don't have prick of conscience because of what you have done. But then we have to consider the opposite thing, opposite person, how much was the infliction. And we must consider both to be more justifiable in our judgments. A very interesting part is coming up. So that's how yoga is Dharma Shastra. Yoga is a Dharma Shastra. What is Dharma? How to be in Dharma? What happens if the Dharma is violated? What are the ways why the Dharma is violated? So all that is coming in the Sutra. It is an enormous purport. So that interesting topic will be coming hereafter. Anyway, thanks for actualizing the 100th lesson. And that too incessantly without break, which we have done. Thank you very much.
Let's recite the shlokas on Guruji. Then let's talk. Vaijñānikam pravaktritva आसनेषु कलाविदम् योगाभ्यासे च तत्त्वज्ञम् वन्देऽहं सुन्दरं गुरुम् योगवृक्षो हि लोकेऽस्मिन् यत्प्रेरणेन वर्धितः योगाचार्यगुरो तुभ्यं सुन्दराय नमो नमः. Thank you.
Namaskar all of you. Thank you.